Hi everyone, this is Ramya, and here's a walkthrough through my sketchbook, which I did for one of my classes at UW. It's pretty obvious that, why would someone want a sketchbook or own a sketchbook and let alone draw in it for a course, really? That's something that's usually unique, right? This was a class that I noticed on the information school at UW, which was taught by Katie Durtick for this particular quarter that I took it, and she gave us so much insight into why sketchnoting is important and how it helps you as a designer, how it helps you as a product leader, and how it can actually be present in everyday life. So every single thing that I learned from this course was so insightful that got me interested into this idea of maintaining it. And though this was a course project, so this was a part of a 10-week plan where we were given about 160 pages and we had to fill up the entire book with anything that we thought of. Now, this gives a lot of freedom, right? So you have a whole bunch of things that you can draw. You might think of drawing your entire day. You might think of the eggs that you made for breakfast, or the ideas that you thought of, or even the papers that we read as a part of the course. So every single thing that we read or learned about in this course, we documented it through sketchnoting. And honestly, I think I remember these papers a lot better because I sketchnoted them. I actually remember the content that came up in most of the papers that I read, which is very rare because you'd probably want to go back into your notes or highlights on your PDF and figure out how it is and what's happening in this paper. So it was a very insightful adventure, I would say, because towards the end, it started becoming a little monotonous, and I was like, okay, where am I going? And here's an example of that. So this is called Walk the Line, where we were made to listen to a specific kind of sound and visualize it into our sketchbook, which was called Walk the Line. And I pulled out words that were interesting. Another one is a collaborative exercise of drawing. So, we could draw by ourselves. We could always put our ideas by ourselves. But how is it that can you actually collaborate with people and work on the design? So we were given about 30 seconds for every single picture initially that we had to draw, so it was a more detailed one. And towards the end, we had about 10 seconds to draw in each other's notebooks, and that took a while. So this was called Sketch Jam. I even went to the extent of going very in depth and I tried to draw my professor. Learning about this particular idea of visualizing and expressing yourself gave me how it's each one of these things have an impact in your life. You find tensions that you never knew existed. You find a new version of yourself that you never knew that existed. You get so many ideas of how you can actually work this through. You can figure out how you can prevent being late to class. And I also try to be as exotic as I could, because what if galaxies were actually pink and not dark black or blue? We got to meet a bunch of great guest speakers who spoke about their adventures, their endeavors, whether it was in the tech community or if it was in their own passions. We even had a day without time because the name of the course was Time, Technology, and Design. How would it be without time? So I had to experience a day with no clocks, no form of time coming through. And that was so insightful because, oh my God, I felt calm and serene. But towards the end, I'm like, am I avoiding a whole other life? Am I doing something wrong? And we even tried to make a zine out of it. And that's what you're seeing right now. So everything felt slow. I've always been the person who's like, okay, let's hustle, let's go faster, let's do this, let's do that, let's be as productive as you can. But it was a constraint, but I was learning how to relax. I was learning as to how I could just do things without thinking. And that was a very new idea or concept for me. And learning how to draw these things weren't the only concern that I had, but it was also about how I could learn to use new materials. And of course, ice cream makes everything better. For sure. Anyways, coming back. So I got to explore different types of media. I used something called as an art crayon, which I've always hated crayons. But this particular one was something that I could actually put water on and make it look like watercolors. Pretty cool, right? So that's what you're seeing right now on the right, where I've drawn stuff with one particular color and then I've colored it in with another crayon's version with, water in it. So it was nice to see how each one of these materials can give a different idea into your notebook and how it can actually express how you feel. These were things that I'd never even thought of, because being an artist, I would think of colors, I would think of combinations, I would think about how it flows into the page or how it looks, how it emotions that it brings out for people. But how would you interpret art if you were given different media? All of this was very new to me, but at the same time, I embraced it because how much worse can it get? And this was one of the exercises that I absolutely loved, where I had to visualize my life for the next 40-ish years, where how I would see myself being. And in the worst case scenario, I'd probably be dying, which is what I drew. And in the best case scenario, I'd probably be living with my partner, very happy, pretty rich, not having to worry about money, and gave me a lot of ideas about how I would actually think about success. I realized so much by just putting myself into this sketchbook. I started analyzing things that I wouldn't really think of. I realized how important art was in my life through this particular class, because not only did I learn how to draw or relearn how to draw or visualize things, I learned how I could connect it with the things that I'm currently passionate about in technology. Whether it's just understanding color palettes or understanding design or understanding how a particular material would make another person feel, I started learning about typography. And if you can notice from the beginning to, the fair end, I tried to maintain how big or small my letters would be in this. And that got me interested in to see how UI plays an important role as well as UX. I've always been a strong advisor, or say I've been passionate about saying user experience is slightly more greater than UI, but I think I might start putting them on the same lines, almost equal. And another part is I got to see things that I wouldn't really see. Like I went to a cafe and I drew a cup of coffee, which I never even ordered because I don't like coffee. Don't cancel me out for that. I got to see how I was as a person and how exhausted I started becoming towards the end of the quarter because, finals week. I started looking at how connected I was to my childhood and started seeing how I would have been as a child if I'm redrawing it. Because as a kid, I never drew myself because, I thought drawing humans was for adults. But I realized that I can actually do that right now. I started seeing things about myself that I didn't really notice before. And I think learning in this class gave me that idea of how inspired I could be with people in my class, as well as people that I met through these guest lectures. It was a creative expression, and I had the freedom to do that. And it was not a standard way of looking at things, but at the same time, I had this liberatory experience of designing, liberatory experience of showing who I am, showing my vulnerabilities, and it was just fun to do this. And I think the way every single person in the class shared their opinions, and they were non-judgmental to anything that was expressed. And I think my professor, Kitty Durtick, was the coolest person that I've met at UW. And she has given so much insight into my life, into how I can always do whatever I want. And she even got me to see how music is an art of time and how it's important to do so. I think each one of these aspects is equally important when you're looking at figuring out what your life is. I even went to the extent of clicking pictures of how my entire quarter was so that I could paste it into my sketchbook so people could actually see it. And I think this has been an absolute adventure, And right from the beginning of how this class was planned, to say we had to draw out our attendance, like draw ourselves. And I took a chance to actually draw myself in the outfits that I wore to class on every single day. And I think I'm happy to say that I didn't repeat my outfits a lot of times. And it feels nice, like, oh my God, I actually have that many clothes. And also makes me feel bad that, oh my God, I'm going to have a large amount of piles of clothes when I'm moving out of this place. But I mean, it was cute. Like, I could document how I felt, and I felt really happy doing this particular course. I learned so much about myself and about the world of design. So I'm glad you stepped by. I'm glad you saw my workbook, or say my sketchbook and my work in it for the last, I don't know, 8 or so minutes. But thank you so much for stopping by.